Hey guys, Lex here again, and today we're talking about the active block mechanic in Path of Exile 2. Active block is a mechanic that's present on certain skills in the game, such as Resonating Shield, Shield Charge, and of course, Raise Shield. So what does it do? It's pretty obvious, I'd say, but active block essentially negates all hit damage within a pretty wide angle in whatever direction your character is facing while channeling an active block skill, at the cost of heavy stun buildup, and this mechanic was actually buffed in 0.3 to block all area of effect attacks as well, something that was traditionally attached to the old Turtle Charm Warbringer Ascendancy node. However, after my recent conversation with Talkative Try and a bunch of you who left comments on my hardcore solo self-bound Shield Bash run, it became apparent to me that not a lot of players know that the vast majority of boss mechanics and skills can be blocked. Not even exaggerating. Oh, and remember those same 0.3 patch notes which read that the red flash unblockable attacks are the only attacks in the game that aren't blockable at this point? Well, turns out that's a lie, because you can partially block to fully block a lot of them. And that's basically the inspiration for this Can You Block That series. I'm going to break down every boss moveset in the game, starting with Act 1 of the campaign for this particular video, which I think will not only be useful for you newer players, but also anyone with some experience who is leveling or playing a shield build. Knowing that you can simply stay close to a boss during a certain move and just block it rather than running 2 miles away will help you start your damage skills up a little sooner, since you won't have to spend time getting back in range to start dishing it out again. Maybe that part's only relevant to melee, but even still I found this to be useful for both leveling my new shield characters and when I encounter the endgame juiced maps or Citadel versions of these bosses. It just helps to know that I can, you know, keep channeling Resonating Shield or keep building up stun with a well-timed shield charge during certain boss mechanics. But yeah, that's enough of an intro. Let's get into the video. Real quick, before we get started, I just want to give you an idea of how I will approach each one of these bosses. I will start with how effective I think blocking is overall for any given boss, then get into the nitty-gritty of breaking down their movesets. Pretty much every boss has some standard swings and swipes that are very obviously blockable, so I'm not going to spend too much time on those unless there's some notable exceptions, which there are, and then I'll get into the more unique attacks and obviously the red animation attacks and which of those are blockable or not. Starting at the very beginning with the Bloated Miller. I mean, this is the beginning of your playthrough and it would behoove you to be more aggressive, but blocking his moveset is on the more effective side, I'd say. In phase 1, this guy will mostly try to swipe you with his hand, which honestly has kind of a janky hitbox. Ironically, this move, which is blockable, is kind of hard to block because of the hitbox. It can hit behind your character. I don't think this is intentional, and this was super annoying to find out when trying to consistently block this one. In phase 2, he starts summoning adds and his moveset changes a bit. He'll start swinging his saw around with these slower horizontal swings. These are all blockable and have some moderate stun buildup. But yeah, he has 2 red animation attacks. One is an overhead swing with a shockwave, and this will be our first red animation attack on the list that is completely blockable. Yep, you can block both parts of this attack and be totally fine, assuming you have the stun threshold for it. And the other red attack is the saw charge he does. The charge portion is truly unblockable. It'll hit you if you try, but the ending swing on the charge is blockable. In case you ever, you know, want to block that part of the move instead of just avoiding it completely. I don't think you'd ever want to do that, but moving on. The next boss is Beira of the Rotten Pack, and honestly, this might be the most blockable boss in the game. Not even kidding. She has no red animation attacks, and literally every attack she throws at you can be blocked. The repeating ice projectiles, the ice projectile shotgun, the frost nova, the ice spikes, etc. All of it, with barely any stun built up either. The only concern is when she summons her wolves. Those things are blockable but have way more stun buildup than the boss itself, ironically, at least in this point in the game. But yeah, overall this boss is completely blockable. Next up we have the Devourer. Not quite as blockable as Beira, but almost all of this guy's moves can be blocked too. It's slow horizontal melee swipes, it's little red spitting projectiles, it's quick melee bite. Even in phase 2, its emerging red ground shockwaves are also fully blockable, as well as all attacks from its tail and its shockwaves. Red animation attacks. This one has one true unblockable, which is the slow wind up into head slam and green vomit. Yeah, you cannot block this, as you saw in the beginning of this section, so you just want to avoid this one and stay out of the green goop on the ground. However, it has 2 other red animation attacks. Both are variations of this spitting out a bunch of green bullet-like projectiles move. and these are actually fully blockable, despite the red animation windup. Alright, next up is the Brambleghast. Overall, I would say blocking is kind of mid on this one. It has one true unblockable that really hits hard, and some of the other stuff, while fully blockable, has some pretty crazy stun buildup and directionality requirements, so you don't want to try blocking them too much. It has the standard double swipe move that's pretty easy to block, nothing of note there, and it'll eventually summon vines to swing at you, obviously all blockable as well, though I think you have to be facing the vine that is attacking you to actually block the attacks, as I hinted at earlier. And then there are some more dangerous moves to block, like the homing chaos explosions. Technically blockable, but they have a lot of stun buildup, so you're better off just avoiding them. And then this chaos ball that shoots chaos bullets in a circular pattern, though you have to be facing where the orb is traveling to block these. Also, don't try to block the orb itself. It's not really a projectile that can be blocked, and the bullets will kill you. It has one red animation attack where it summons two big vines out of the ground to purple slam ya. Yeah, don't block this. It's a true unblockable and will decimate you if you do, so stay away. The Rust King. This boss's moveset is technically pretty blockable, but overall I would consider active blocking not super effective for this one, mostly because so many of his moves have a lot of stun buildup, but also some non-red animation attacks can actually hit you while blocking. For his basic moves, he has this backhand that's pretty easy to block, and also this move where he impales the ground with some random weapons. This is also blockable, but is one of those moves with some pretty significant stun buildup. He also has this multi-directional projectile attack that hits in like a asterisk formation around him. Yeah, this is also blockable, but same story, lots of stun buildup on this one, and it can hit twice if you are too close to him. There is a damage portion to his lightning summoning move when adds start joining the fight, but no matter what direction you face, this is unblockable despite having no red animation windup. So this is one you'll just have to avoid some other way, likely just rolling through it or something. There's another projectile attack that also has no red windup, and he just throws a bunch of random weapons forward. Yeah, this also seemed inconsistent with the blocking. Sometimes I'd get hit and sometimes I wouldn't. This was a strange one, and I don't know if there's some weird directionality involved with it. Lastly, his true red animation attack. The first two swipes of this combo can be blocked, but once again have a ton of stun buildup. And the last part of the move where he shoots a bunch of weapons as projectiles forward, yep, true unblockable, it hurts, don't get hit by it. Next up is the Rotten Druid, one of the easier bosses overall, and you're probably just going to be super aggressive with this one, but yeah, overall blocking on this guy is also very effective to boot. So to start, his little hand swipe is probably the most obviously blockable move out of them all. However, all of his projectile attacks can also be active blocked without even really having to face the collision points either. It looks like they are a bunch of random mini AoE hits on the ground, so that sort of makes sense blocking wise, though just be careful of the continuous rapid fire one, as that can build up your stun meter pretty quickly. Not even the big thrashing vines he summons can get through your shield either. Moderate stun buildup, but yeah, super easy blocking on this one overall. Two exceptions here. If he happens to teleport you in the middle of the arena where all those mushrooms are, the mushroom explosions are blockable, so that's good to know. But obviously you need to step out of the damaging mushroom goop because that is not blockable. And his one true red animation attack, the boulder, yep, I took this one to the face to show you that it is not blockable. You're welcome. Asinia, the Praetor's Consort. I'll start by saying that I think overall blocking is actually fairly effective on this boss, assuming you have the stun threshold, because you can outright block some of her scariest moves. To start, any of these slicing moves with her sickle are totally blockable, whether it's just the single swing or the teleport double swing she likes to perform. She also has a little bone spike move. It kind of looks like Unearth that she'll send your way if you're a little out of reach for the weapon. This one is also blockable. But moving on to some of her signature moves. So the series of ground curses that damage you, these are completely blockable, guys. You can just stand still and block these with active block if you wanted to. However, the last biggest circle has a lot more stun buildup than the others. Anytime Draven shows up, his slash and projectiles are also totally blockable, and her spit a bunch of green crap everywhere projectile move is also totally blockable, as intimidating as the animation is. Her one true unblockable is the bone cage into projectile rain. Yeah, this is one you're going to want to escape, as the projectiles are not blockable and will hurt you if you are tagged by a bunch of them. Pretty cool that there is so much that you can block in this fight though. Draven, the Eternal Praetor, up next. Big surprise, and I gotta say, blocking is actually quite strong on this boss. Any of his basic sword swings or his sword swing combos can be totally blocked, even when he's hyped up on Spirit Juice in Phase 2, as well as his signature sword swing into Spread Shot move, though just be careful on that last one because the sword swing and projectiles don't have a ton of stun buildup on their own, but if you end up blocking both the melee swing and multiple projectiles, you can get heavy stunned really quickly, especially the doubled up version in phase 2. As with the other fight, Asinia's Cursed Ground sequence is blockable, though Draven does have one true unblockable red animation attack, which is where he stomps a green ghostly line down in front of him and cleaves it with an overhead swing. Yeah, no part of this move is blockable, and it will hurt you if you try blocking it. Lachlann of Endless Lament. Blocking is unusually amazing against this guy, as you can block what is arguably his scariest move, the big forward-backward ground slam. Totally blockable, guys, though it does have a lot of stun buildup, which shouldn't be surprising considering how hard that thing hits. But yeah, aside from that, any standard melee attacks are blockable, from his hand swipe to his slow horizontal double swing, and pretty much all of his projectile attacks are blockable as well. The forward shot spirit, the shoot up and dive down spirit, and the circling spirit that also dives into the ground. All parts of these attacks are blockable, and there is some directionality involved with some of the projectile attacks from what I've noticed. For instance, the shoot up and dive down spirit, you need to make sure you are facing the center of the AoE to block the attack, rather than any old direction. Lachlann has one red animation attack, which is a big wind up into ground shockwave in a cone shape in front of him, and this is a true unblockable, so this is also one to dodge. The Crowbell. Blocking is kinda mid on this boss, I'd say, until the last phase, which is arguably the most dangerous. Blocking actually becomes a lot stronger here. Early on, it has some slower melee swings and punches. These are all blockable, though they have some moderate stun buildup, and it has two red animation attacks where it does these overhead ground punches. None of these are blockable, so get out of the way. During the second part of this fight, after it runs away that first time, it gets a little bigger. Its standard slaps and swipes, while still blockable, have even more stun buildup. Red animation attacks are similar here, though strangely enough, it has one overhead slam that is fully blockable for some reason. I'm not sure why, because the others are not blockable, neither the leaping ground punch or the rapid ground punches that last a while. Alright, the last phase, when the Crowbell has its bell, I kid you not, its whole moveset, though scary, becomes completely blockable. Seriously, there isn't one attack you can't block, though most everything hits very hard, so make sure you have enough stun threshold to block, or if you don't get hit or be prepared for a heavy stun. Even its red animation attack here, where it swipes the bell twice towards the direction it's facing, yeah, totally blockable as well, despite the red windup, without even that much stun buildup, to be honest. Alright, the King in the Mists. Blocking on this one is also kinda mid to bad overall in my opinion, especially in phase 1 where he's just jumping around half the time. He's mostly gonna be pelting you with projectiles in phase 1 or casting Thorn Grip, all of which are fully blockable. The blood pools on the ground are predictably unblockable, and the dark effigies he starts summoning after taking a bit of damage are also unblockable, and will also stack a increased fizz damage taken debuff on you every time you get hit by them. And of course, the Thorns Nova he casts when you are close to him is also completely unblockable. A lot of stuff to avoid here. In phase 2, he actually has a few melee moves he'll perform if you are right next to him, which are super easy to block and don't do a lot of damage. He'll either smack you with his staff or try to kick you. And these moves, while blockable, are also much preferable to most of the other moves this phase, so as a melee, I try to stick as close as I can to bait these out. Other than that, it's a similar story to the first phase. Basic projectiles can be blocked, but no ground effects can be blocked. Neither the blood pools nor the purple bug swarms. The totems and the Thorns Novas are once again present here and still cannot be blocked. He does have one new red animation attack this phase, where he rips open his chest and shoots that bug swarm at you. This projectile's impact is not blockable. However, it leaves behind these purple boils on the ground which will explode when you walk over them, and these on the other hand are blockable, but have some directionality attached to them, so you have to make sure you are facing them with your active block skill of choice. Up next is the Executioner, and I gotta say blocking is fairly effective against this guy, a little above mid, but nothing amazing. To start, all of his standard swings are obviously blockable, his little kick, his backhand, and his wide horizontal double swings. However, just something I noticed, his backhand attack actually has 2 hit frames, meaning it can hit twice. You can see it with the stun buildup here. Reminds me of the Bloated Miller's own backhand attack, to be honest, and I don't know what GGG's obsession is with making these backhand attacks so strong. But anyways, in phase 2 he starts summoning his boys. Obviously they all have attacks which are blockable, including the flaming arrows from the archers. Other than that, his standard moves remain the same while he gains 3 red animation attacks. His signature guillotine move, probably his hardest hitting attack, is unsurprisingly unblockable, but I had to know, so I took it to the face anyway. And he has an overhead swing that shoots out a forward shockwave that also has both parts unblockable, the melee swing and the shockwave. However, the third red animation attack is when he holds his axe over his head and channels it for a bit, infusing it with fire, and then brings it down for a big fiery explosion. this is surprisingly completely blockable. Candlemass is next, guys, and overall I will say that blocking is very effective against this boss, likely even stronger than Beira since he actually has some red animation attacks and they're all just fully blockable. So yeah, obviously the standard sword swings can all be blocked, variations of fiery horizontal swings, again, everything can be blocked here. Just make sure you are facing the direction of the swing. But let's get to the red animation attacks. There is one where he charges up his sword overhead, twirls and swings, which has both a melee portion and a fire projectile portion to the attack. Both parts are fully blockable, and I had assumed in my hardcore SSF run that this was only partially blockable, but nope. I was wrong then, and you can just straight up block this. Then there's the Flame Breath. Once again, totally blockable as long as you are facing the direction of the breath. And lastly, it's Explode Everything Everywhere move with the fire projectiles. Not only is this fully blockable, but directionality does not matter here. Just face wherever and active block while you are right next to the guy if you want. And lastly, we have Count Geonor. Ironically, being the last boss of the act and possessing some very intimidating skills, blocking is incredibly effective against this guy. Phase 1 is pretty obvious. Any non-red animation sword swings and combos can be blocked. As for the red animation attacks, he has a charged piercing ice projectile that cannot be blocked, and this like V/overhead swing that traps you in some ice walls. Yeah, this cannot be blocked either, so I wouldn't recommend it. When he turns into wolf form, still in phase 1 mind you, all of his moves here are actually totally blockable. Obviously anything from these summoned adds, including their ice explosions when they die, but also any of Geonor's bites here are blockable, and surprisingly, so is the big dive bomb move he performs here, despite the red animation sound cue playing on this one. Phase 2, things actually get easier for blocking, I'd say. Once again, any of his standard moves are blockable, any bites, and this quick backswing he does if you are behind him, which I think he can do in phase 1 too, actually. But anyways, onto his more signature moves. Aside from the fog that's present when he's reciting his poem, we have a lot of blockable stuff here. The Frost Breath, totally blockable. Frost Nova, once again, totally blockable. His dreaded Requiem on High Moonbeam attacks, believe it or not, also totally blockable without even any directionality involved, so feel free to block all of this stuff, though when the beams become blood infused, the hit portion is still technically blockable, but they will now inflict corrupted blood on you, which can hurt, and that portion is unblockable, so you'll want to avoid them during this portion of the fight, or just, you know, end him quickly. Lastly, a bit of a PSA here. Strangely enough, his dive bomb attack that was fully blockable in phase 1 becomes fully unblockable in phase 2. Not sure if this is intentional or not, but this is currently how it works, and I just wanted to make sure you all see this. Don't try blocking the dive bomb in phase 2. And that covers it for Act 1, guys. Let me know if you like this series. I'm obviously going to hit each act and then potentially have some more videos going over map bosses and pinnacles and maybe some of these scarier rare or essence-infused rares effects that you run into maps as well. I kind of like that pinnacles idea. Maybe that'll be the next video, but that's going to be it for this one. Keep an eye out for the next one in the series, and I'll see you then.